Welcome to Bad Ideas, the show where we look at misfires, mistakes, and miscalculations from all throughout history.
I'm Tony Southcott.
And I'm Albert Berg, and today's episode is brought to you by our featured patron, Zoli.
Thank you, Zoli.
Today, Tony has the bad idea for us. Tony, what are we going to be talking about this week?
We're going to be talking about the American Airlines Pass, or the AAirpass, or the AirPass, depending on how you want to pronounce it, because it's just kind of weird looking.
Was this a pass that allowed you to see as many movies as you wanted to in a month for $10?
No, this is a pass that allowed you to go on as many flights as you wanted to until the day you die.
Okay. So, I'm guessing American Airlines betting on me dying real soon. Hoping that I die real soon.
I don't think it was quite that insidious, but they've met a few people who got these passes that would make them want that eventually.
Okay.
What was that just called Movie Pass? The one you were referring to earlier? That's probably going to be
or no, didn't you have it for a minute?
I have the AMC Movie Pass, which is like $22 a month, and I can go to 3 movies a week, which is, I've never been able to surpass that number. So it's a good deal for me. Plus, they sent me free popcorn and soda for my birthday. But we're not sponsored by AMC here. In 1981, American Airlines was faced with massive budget issues. They needed to come up with capital to make up for a great many changes in the airline industry. Increased competition from more airlines drove ticket prices into the dirt, and this was mostly caused by the Airline Deregulation Act of 1978. Lots of innovative startups were going, and they had to start charging much, much less per ticket to keep up with these people. And in the meantime, fuel costs were skyrocketing, the economy was sliding into a recession, so few people were traveling, and there were just a lot of other factors that made them lose about $76 million that year.
This sounds like just the worst. I'm glad I'm not in charge of American Airlines at this time, because you got all of the bad things for a business happening at once.
Yeah, it's hard to survive something like that. Like, whenever you have a business model on one complete paradigm, and then it shifts because of deregulation, that is some rough transitionary periods.
But, you know, it's great to have those transitions during an economic downturn when your cost of operations skyrocket.
Yeah, definitely. I'm honestly surprised some of these airlines made it out during that time period. All of this made for a nightmare scenario for the airline. In an effort to bring in some cold hard cash, American Airlines created the AirPass, or once again, the AirPass. It's just double A AirPass. It's weird. I don't know why my brain doesn't want...
Is there 2 A's and then AirPass? Are there 3 A's and AirPass?
No, it's 2 A's, but there's no space. So it's just like the AAirpass, and it's all one thing. And for some reason, my brain just wants to like pronounce it slow.
It doesn't make any sense, because if it's the American Airlines AirPass, that should be 3 A's.
Yes.
Then if it's 2 A's, it's right. The American AirPass, which doesn't... That's not a thing.
Especially because those actually covered a lot of international travel because it worked on any airline that was owned by American Airlines. So you could pretty much go fully around the world, and that's just not the American AirPass. I'm just going to call it the AirPass from now on, otherwise we're going to keep on having that come back up. The AirPass was a deal that allowed the buyer unlimited first-class travel for life. No caveats, just as many first-class tickets as your heart desires.
First class?
Yes, first class. Want to fly from New York to London for tea and come right back? Perfect. Want to fly to Dallas just to see a football game and fly home? American Airlines had you covered. This pass cost $250,000 in 1981, which comes out to about $700,000 in 2020 cash. You could add on a guest pass for an extra $150,000 and always bring a friend with you.
That's not a small amount of money, Tony.
It's not a small amount of money, but if you're buying first class tickets, you're looking at like a flight from New York to London being like $5,000. So if you're a business person that's going to be traveling all the time, it's a very good deal. But it's also $400,000 to do it. Some people actually got loans to pay for this because they knew they were going to be using it so much.
Yeah, I was going to say, the kind of person that has this type of cash on hand, I mean, they can't number in the many thousands, but if you're making it as an investment, I guess, yeah, you borrow the money and it's going to pay itself off eventually.
Yep, especially because there are a lot of people that were taking like 120 flights a year that they were having to pay for, and getting that up to first class, that would be very, very expensive. Mark Cuban, who is one of the people that bought one of these passes, still says it might be the very best thing or the best investment he ever made. And like, he's a guy that actually has a private jet, but he still chooses to use this a lot.
So, spoilers for the end, people who had these are still using them.
Yes, there are still some people with them.
50? No, wait, what year did this come out?
81.
Do the math. 81. Okay, so 40 years later.
Yes, 40 years later, like, there are still people that are just chugging along with these. For around $1.2 million in today's money, you could fly for life with almost no restriction. The AirPass was literally good until you died. A total of 66 passes were sold. And that's a decent cash infusion, but when you're talking about the money that they lost that year, it still doesn't seem like it was really going to help all that much.
Yeah, it's not $76 million worth
definitely
of
not.
Extra money.
It's a few million and would end up costing them a lot more later.
Okay. However, 66, that is a smaller number than I was expecting. I am very vaguely familiar with this story, and I was expecting there to be at least many hundreds of these in circulation. 66 doesn't sound like the biggest debacle. Even if every single person flies every day, that's not going to be your biggest problem if you're American
especially
Airlines.
Not during this time period.
Right.
It's more of a bad idea because of just like how much they just wanted to counteract this, and whenever you're making lifetime guarantees, that can get a little bit sketchy. But people like baseball player Willie Mays, Dell computer founder Mike Dell, and we already talked about it, Mark Cuban picked up some of these passes. And they actually kept these passes on sale for a little bit longer. Like, this was just like the original run. And they put it up for like 1 or 2 days in, I want to say 2003 for like $3 million. So they've toyed with doing this idea again, but nobody bought it that time whenever it was like a 1-day deal to drop $3 million.
You got to think about dropping $3 million, even if you got it in the bank. It's like, I don't know.
And if you got that like Jeff Bezos money, you're probably just flying private anyway.
My personal business philosophy, which may not be good in all circumstances, is generally, if you have to make the decision today, it's not a good choice.
Yeah, it's like, it's not a sandwich. You're not doing like some major investment like thoughts in 1 day most of the time.
Right. If the car salesman's like, listen, it's going to be more money tomorrow, then don't buy the car.
Yeah.
Because that's not the kind of position you want to be in. You want to have some time to think about it. That's just a general, I think, good idea. Again, might not apply in every single situation ever, but if somebody's pressuring you to do the deal now, today, and it won't be available tomorrow, you might want to really consider not.
Yeah, except for the fact that I just lost a dresser I was really looking forward to buying today because I decided to wait overnight on it. Oh well.
Your clothes will be fine on the floor, Tony.
And many of them are, unfortunately. Also, if you want to see my clothes on the floor, go to youtube.com/humanechoes and see episode 2 of The Twilight Forest, because I couldn't zoom in enough on my camera.
You're supposed to kick him out from behind there. We're also tangenting a lot. Go to the good stuff on the bad idea here.
All right. The problem with this program wasn't the average flyer, or even the business flyer that had to jet set across the country constantly. It was about the all-you-can-eat abusers. The type that would walk into a Golden Corral and stuff their faces in pockets with binges of epic proportions. Unlimited works in some places because you assume the average person isn't going to go that deep, but it can make a business unprofitable if you have those people.
Also, they don't sell lifetime subscriptions to Golden Corral.
Man,
you do have to leave when they shut the restaurant down.
But think about it, that would be a better business model than this, because if you're doing like the American Airlines nonstop thing with Golden Corral, you are going to reduce their lifespan.
Yeah, that's fair. For life, which, if you use this enough, will only be about 5 more years.
Yeah, it's like, oh man, just stuff some of those rolls and just dip it right in the fountain of chocolate. Yeah.
Man, you're making me want Golden Corral, Tony.
I haven't been there in years, but I definitely loved it as a kid. American Airlines underestimated a few of their patrons' desires. Steve Rothstein is the most notorious of these people. A financier from Chicago, he bought his pass using a combination of cash and miles that he had accumulated over the decade prior. Taking his discounted AirPass, Rothstein would average 400 flights per year.
That's more than one a day. I can't imagine enjoying or needing to fly enough to fly enough to get for, even with Connect, does this guy just love being on a plane?
I was reading something from his daughter, an article on this, and like whenever she was 9 years old, he told her like, this is my playground whenever he was at the airport. He apparently knew everybody that worked for American, like at that airport, and would just constantly be hanging out there and in their club. He had a family and everything, but a lot of times he would just take the day and go like, "Oh, I'm going to spend the day in California and come home for dinner," or "I'm going to fly an overnight to Tokyo and then like the next day I'll be back." But a lot of times he would just do these little trips and people wouldn't even know that he was gone. He would just do like a 9 to 5 where he spent the day in Boston or things like that. It really depended on what he wanted to do. On a regular basis, he would fly from Chicago to Providence, Rhode Island to get his favorite bologna and Swiss sandwich. He'd have lunch in London and immediately fly back. He went to tons of baseball games all over the country, usually in Boston, and then fly out to meet with his friends for drinks in other cities in the same day.
I guess it's probably cheaper than buying the kind of house he would want to buy in Boston, right?
I guess, but he's in Chicago. I imagine the prices are pretty high there.
Well, no, but he already has the Chicago house, so he probably doesn't want to go through the trouble of listing it, you know.
Yeah. And like the thing is, he really enjoyed spending time with his family, so he would always just want to do like the day trips to places. Like he wanted to be home.
If
so
you are
spend time with his
constantly
family.
leaving, I mean, that's not really enjoying spending time with your family. That's having a family as a hobby.
Yeah, but he also had the buddy pass, so he was able to take them with him a lot of times too. Just like
I'm not throwing shade at this man and his family life. I have my own problems with my family, so I can understand the need to get away occasionally.
Yeah, you also fly like once a year, and it's such a pain that like the idea of doing that 400 times must be daunting. It is for me. Yeah.
I have never flown first class, so I don't know how much better that would be, but even thinking about first class, like the flights that we could get on, from my tiny town, the first class area, I mean, there's better leg room, but that's about all you have to recommend it.
It's blocked by a sheet, and you might be able to get an additional soda or something like that.
No, there's no sheet. There's not even any sheet actions on the plane I'm carrying.
Rothstein would end up flying to London more than 500 times over the course of this pass. He also would reserve a ticket under a fake name like Bag Rothstein, so he could have more space in first class and just put his bag next to him.
I was like, that's a weird name, and then you explained exactly what he was doing with it, and I gotta say, I love the idea of his little bag riding around with him. Maybe it has like a face, Tony, with the buttons or whatever.
Yeah, it's just googly eyes and everything.
There's a Pixar movie coming out about Bag Rothstein, and it's many flights to London.
He would also use his buddy pass to help people he met at the airport with free upgrades, and a lot of times he would see that people had missed a flight, and he would offer to use that secondary seat that he had to get them to where they needed to go. He also would make a lot of flights and just cancel them, like a lot of the people that were in this program did. I was reading somewhere that there were more than like 10,000 times that people had made a flight and then just didn't go between these 66 people. So they would just buy tickets thinking that they wanted to go somewhere, but because it didn't matter, that like they didn't have to pay anything.
They weren't paying.
They just
for the
wouldn't
tickets.
show up. Yeah. So that was another thing that was costing them a lot of money.
I was wondering about that. I thought you could just show up at the airport and be like, take me somewhere. And if you had a sold out flight, what are they going to do? Like kick the people out of first class that paid for their ticket? But I guess it was a little more organized than that.
I could see that they might have like priority seating, but I'm not entirely sure how that shook out. I didn't read about anybody getting kicked out like that. On December 13th, 2008, Rothstein had his pass taken away for trying to give his friend his buddy pass for a flight to Bosnia. This was a Bosnian refugee, and it was one of the guys that actually drove the car in the airport, and he was just trying to get back to see his family for the first time in a long time. And American Airlines used that as their excuse to basically cancel his.
I can see exactly why American Airlines would be like, yes, finally, we got him on an infraction. But also, the public relations look of, we really slapped it to this guy who was trying to get his buddy back to Bosnia because he was an immigrant from there. And I don't know all the circumstances, but it seems like probably that wasn't fun for them to have to deal with.
Yeah, definitely not. But it's also for them, like, is it bad enough PR to counter the more than $21 million that Rothstein alone cost them in revenue?
Yep. That's a pretty good value judgment. How much longer did he have? How old was he when they took it away?
I think he was in his 60s. No, he might have been older than that. He bought it in 87 whenever he was 37 years old. So, yeah, he was getting up there, but not dying yet. I think he has passed since then, but his family actually blames American Airlines for that because he lost the ability to travel, which they say killed him, which he also still had money, so he was still traveling. He just didn't have his airline pass. Yeah, but they actually fully barred him from ever using American Airlines ever again after that.
Wow. That's harsh.
Yeah. They did it to him at Heathrow Airport too, so he was just in the no, that was somebody else. They did that to Jacques Vroom, who was another one of those binge travelers. Also, everybody who's ever lost one of these ends up throwing a lawsuit at American Airlines, and none of them have ever won. They tried to sue him for slander, they tried to sue him for so many other things, but they never got their passes back.
I can see why it would be hard to litigate. I deserve... If you are on one of these tickets and you even make the slightest infraction, you gotta know they're gonna come down with the letter of the law because they're losing money hand over fist on you.
Yeah, it's for them it stopped being it was a stopgap measure in the 80s to keep them from closing down, and they're just losing millions of dollars every year to these types of people. And there are others who still have it that use it a regular amount, and I'm sure American Airlines doesn't like that, but they've probably just kind of been at peace with it.
Again, 66 total sold, with however many rescinded since then. It cannot be a major line item on their budget.
Yep. But the airlines do run on a pretty thin line these days, but even then it's not going to be destroying anything. This is a shorter episode this week. It was just a fascinating little story that I found, and I was just kind of having fun reading about all the different reactions people had, the way the airline just buried itself in there. So I guess the bad idea here is be very careful whenever you're a business offering anything free for life, or rather a one-time upfront cost, because people are going to find a way to exploit it whenever you offer something like this. And it's just a silly, fun story. And next week we're going to give you something much, much heavier.
Yeah, there might be some fun stuff in the Sand Creek Massacre, Tony. I'm sure there's all kinds of opportunities for levity and fun in the story of horrible atrocities against the Native Americans.
Yeah, I'm sure people like Kit Carson and all that had great senses of humor. But anyway,
he's not in this story as far as I know, Tony.
Okay,
I don't know who Kit Carson is. Do I need to do more research? I'm not ready.
He's big in Colorado history stuff. I thought he might have been part of that or was one of the people that was trying to stop it from happening, but my history was wrong there. Fort Carson.
He has not come up in my research.
All right.
I'm freaking out.
All right. That's it, everybody. If you enjoyed this, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/humanechoes. If you really, really enjoy this, $1, $2, $5 a month, it gets you pins, bonus podcasts, access to all sorts of really fun stuff. We would greatly appreciate it. We'd also really appreciate it if you told a friend about this show. I hope you guys have an excellent week. We will be back with more bad ideas next week.